You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. On the show today, we got to talk about what's arguably the worst loss of the season, as the New York Mets had a golden opportunity to finally win a game when trailing going to the ninth inning, and they let it slip through their fingers. I'll break down everything on the show today. Before we do, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Now, I'm recording this show at about 5:30 in the morning. Last night, I tried to do the podcast, and you would have got me maybe a little more angry, maybe a little more frustrated, but also a lot more tired. And as I was going through it, I just realized this is going to be better if I hit the reset button, go to sleep, see what happens with all the other games, and then get on and try to make sense of what happened. And now I think with a little bit of perspective, maybe this is even a better show, because when I was recording last night, I knew that the Cubs had lost and the Reds were able to pick up their third straight win against them and are now one game back with the Mets in this race. But now I know the Diamondbacks won as well. So we'll talk about where the race is in the next segment, or maybe the final segment, depending on how long I go today. First and foremost, let's talk about the end of that game, because we could also spend time right now to open up the show talking about how the Mets came out flat on one of only two remaining McLean days left this season. And they came out not just flat, actually, but also sloppy, which helped them fall to a 3-0 deficit in this game. But I want to talk about the end, which was the bottom of the eighth inning, when the Mets actually gave you some semblance of hope that they were going to rally back into this game. Pete Alonso got hit by a pitch. Brandon Nimmo grounded out, but beat out the would-be double play turn. So that extends the inning for Starling Marte, and Marte ripped a double over James Wood's head to put runners at second and third, 2 outs. Carlos Mendoza is going to get a lot of flack, or he always gets a lot of flack for this team. But for once, he really did push all the right buttons. He puts in Mark Vientos to pinch it for Jeff McNeil. Vientos rips one over the third base bag for a double. All of a sudden, the Mets are only trailing by a run. Francisco Alvarez strikes out to end that rally. Ninth inning, Ryan Helsley comes on, works around a leadoff walk in the ninth, strikes out 2, and then Francisco Alvarez guns down a runner trying to steal, and it ends up being a scoreless frame for Helsley, bringing the Mets up with a chance to tie the game with a single run in the ninth inning. I mentioned Carlos Mendoza pushing the right buttons. He pinch hits for Brett Beatty with Luis Torrens, and I was ready to rip that decision, but Torrens, on the first pitch he sees, rifles a single into left field. So that worked. Jose Asiri comes on to pinch run. Cedric Mullins comes up, lays down a bunt, and that advanced Siri into scoring position. Francisco Lindor gets hit by a pitch, bringing up Juan Soto with 2 on and a chance to win the game. Now, Soto took some hacks trying to win the game with one swing. And that was on the first 2 pitches that he saw. Ends up in a hole in the count, has to shorten up. But Juan Soto, being the elite hitter that he is able to just get enough of one. And he hits a flare into center field, and it's a tie ball game as Jose Siri comes around to score. Then, with runners at first and second, Pete Alonso, if the Mets get aggressive, they're trying to win the game. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, double steal. Fire me up. All right. Sac fly wins it. You're right there. Pete Alonso, though, gets walked. So now you got the bases loaded for Brandon Nimmo. And in retrospect, maybe the double steal wasn't the right move because it took the bat out of Pete Alonso's hands. The other side of that coin, though, is you got the winning run 90 feet away. Pass ball, you win the game. Drawn walk, you win the game. A softly hit ground ball, you might win the game on that depending on where it's hit and where the infield's playing. Fly ball, you win the game. The only things you didn't want from Brandon Nimmo in that at-bat were a pop-up and a strikeout. And what do? He strikes out. Not only does he strike out, he strikes out swinging at a pitch that was in the other batter's box. A brutal swing. If he's able to look at that pitch, maybe he gets back in the count 2-2, gets something to hit. But no, strikes out. Starling Marte, you give him a pass because he had the huge double that set up the Mets to be in the game, but he strikes out as well with the bases loaded. And you blew a golden opportunity to, again, for the first time this season, win a game after trailing going into the ninth. Here comes the extra innings. Edwin Diaz goes out to try to strand the ghost runner, does exactly that. The Nationals at points are trying to give away this game. You had a bad bunt that popped it up and allowed the Mets to get a quick, easy out. And Edwin Diaz able to get through that inning, gets a ground out, gets a strikeout. 7 pitches, 7 strikes, easy peasy, gets through the inning. Here comes Luis Angel Acuna, who goes to lay down a bunt to advance the runner to third, and instead he sort of pops it up but right in front of home plate, and the catcher tries to dive, can't make the play. Ends up being just a botch play. Acuna on first, ghost runner on second. Francisco Alvarez comes up. You have a chance in that spot to lay down a bunt and put runners at second or third with the winning run on third base. The Mets opt not to do that because probably if you watch Francisco Alvarez, just try to slide feet first. Okay, there's some fundamentals that guys who go through the minor leagues as star players just aren't always great at. They don't have it in their toolkit. That's a problem because in this situation, you need a bunt. You bunt, you not only do you put the runner 90 feet away in a tie game, but you bunt yourself, if it's an effective sacrifice, out of a double play. What happens? The only thing that can't happen. Again, Francisco Alvarez, if he strikes out, okay. Hope is not lost. If he flies out, okay, depending on where it's hit, you might get the runner to third. If he pops out, all right, not the best, but hey, at least you still have another chance. And yes, the Mets had another chance, but Alvarez hit into a double play ball. So while runner was on third base, that runner's on third base with 2 outs. So Ronnie Mauricio hits a fly ball that could have won the game had Alvarez got the runner over without hitting into double play, and instead ended the inning and got to go back out for the 11th. And then what happens then? Tyler Rogers comes in for Edwin Diaz, who again threw 7 pitches, all of them strikes, but Carlos Mendoza said after the game they only had Diaz for 1. So now think about that. Here we are on Sunday. Who's going to pitch in this game? The Mets really need the Manaea Holmes piggyback to cover the whole game because this bullpen all of a sudden gassed. But Tyler Rogers comes on for Edwin Diaz, gets a ground out, horrible base running by C.J. Abrams. What do you do if you are a runner on second base? They tell you this in maybe not T-ball, but certainly by the time you get to coach pitch, they're trying to teach you this simple rule. Ball hit to your left, you go. Ball hit to your right, you hold. Ball hit to Abrams' right, he just goes. And so the Mets get bailed out because Ronnie Mauricio is able to tag the ghost runner, and now you just got a runner on first base with 1 out. But you got Dalen Lyle up, and this guy has ridiculous speed. I noted this going into the series in the 2 weeks prior to facing the Mets. And I think it was either 12 or 14 games, the guy had 5 triples. So that would tell you, or that would suggest the type of speed that he has. Hits a fly ball. Cedric Mullins tries to go back to make the spectacular play, and he doesn't do it. And by not getting to that ball, it hits off the wall, bounces away from him, ends up being an inside-the-park home run. And that's how you lose the game, because the Mets failed to do anything in the bottom half of the 11th. So you just look at a calamity of errors throughout the game if you talk about from the beginning, and we will go through the beginning of that game in the next segment. But I look at 2 at-bats in particular. Brandon Nimmo, bases loaded, 1 out. You got to just get the run in. After all the momentum the Mets just grabbed, they battle back from down 3-0. They get 2 runs in the 8th. They're able to get the tying run across in the 9th. The pressure's off. You're not at risk to lose the game to the Nationals at that time because finally you're not losing in the game and you have a runner 90 feet away. And Nimmo blows it. And then Francisco Alvarez, runners at first and second, nobody out. They refuse to put a bunt on. And he does the one thing you can't do. Hits into a double play. Multiple opportunities to win a game. And guess what? Now, you only got a game lead with 7 left to play, and the team that's chasing you has the tiebreaker. So I want to talk about the beginning of this game and the wild card race. We're going to get to all that stuff in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots, which deliver caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shots, so you can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. My favorite flavor is the blue raspberry, but you got so many great flavors to choose from. Cherry, berry, apple bash, peach mango, so much more. And honestly, I love how fast it kicks in and that it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. That's 5hourenergy.com, or you can find it on Amazon or at your local store today. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there by the end of the season, but we've only got 1 week left to do it. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, so let's talk about the beginning of this game for the Mets. First inning, Washington Nationals score a run on a walk, a wild pitch, a base hit, then a ground out. Not a good start. Second inning, infield single. Francisco Lindor makes a great stop but could not complete the play. Then you have a base hit to Juan Soto, and Juan Soto botches it. He just does not come up with the ball. It gets past him. That allows the run to score. And then Pete Alonso even makes an error in that inning. Nolan McLean nearly bails his teammates out. He strikes out the next 2 batters to almost get out of the inning. But then a wild pitch ends up scoring a run. Just awful baseball early in this game. McLean only gives up 1 earned run in this game on 4 hits, 2 walks, struck out 6 to get through 5 innings. But the Mets play bad defense behind him, and worse, they come out flat offensively and just waste some opportunities. First inning, Juan Soto tries to bunt his way on, and I get it. I know that's part of his game, but you better get on when you do it, because if you don't, and then Pete Alonso doubles right after that, I'm going to look back and say, Juan, when you don't bunt, I don't know how much that's going to impact your on-base percentage, but when you don't bunt, you get on base at about a 400 clip. When you're hot, you get on base at sometimes even close to a 500 clip. So if it's a 1 in 2 chance that you might have got on had you actually just swung away and Pete Alonso doubles right after you, that could have been a run. And guess what? The Mets lose this game, not by a run because the inside of the park homer, but 1 run would have made all the world of difference. So that was a moment that I wish the Mets had back. Granted, Soto is awesome. I'm not going to pin this on him. How about the fact that in the second inning, the Mets get 2 runners on and Brett Beatty hits into an inning double play? Or in the third inning, again, 2 runners on. Pete Alonso pops up. Brandon Nimmo grounds out. 5th inning, leadoff single for Beatty. Cedric Mullins strikes out. Francisco Lindor lines out. But Juan Soto singles in front of Pete Alonso, giving Pete a chance with runners at first and third. Does not come through. And going up against Cade Cavalli, who has good stuff, but it's not like he blew anybody away in this outing. It's not like anyone came away from this game and said, man, Cade Cavalli, wow. Those 3 strikeouts in 5 innings, he was really carving. No. The Mets just couldn't come through. And then you had Connor Pinkerton, Clayton Beeter, and Sarin Lau coming out of the bullpen. None of them are good relievers. All of them had a scoreless inning. I mean, it was just, I hate to call it pathetic, but we talked about the importance of this series. We talked about how bad the Nationals pitching is. And the Mets could not figure it out. And now guess what? The Cincinnati Reds are a game back with the tiebreaker with 7 left to play. So the Mets, their magic number is 7 with 7 left because they have a game lead. And depending on what the Reds do, if the Reds win out, the Mets have to win out too. Otherwise, they will not make it. Now, are the Reds going to win out? I was talking to my dad about this last night because he was, in a worse state than I was. How the season's over. Even the Mets have a lead. And I get it. It's frustrating because this team has played bad baseball for too long. And every time you get a semblance of hope, they take your heart, they rip it out of your chest for a night, and they stomp on it. And that's what it felt like, watching the Mets blow an opportunity to win that game and then having to watch the Reds get the job done. Because the Reds are doing what you're supposed to on your final homestand of the season. They're making it count. They're making it count. Hunter Green delivers a gem in the first game. They win 1-0. They then win 7-4. And then last night they won 6-3. 3 in a row against a team that is better than them in the Cubs, who really have nothing left to play for but home field in the first round. But still, they're not giving away these games. The Reds are taking them. And now they got a chance for a 4-game sweep on Sunday. Now, those are really hard to pick up. Let me see what the pitching probables are this afternoon. Real quick. It'd be amazing if I actually have enough Wi-Fi in the car. I do. Outside the Airbnb. Not bad. Not bad. It's working for us, I think. I spoke too soon. Cubs pitching, we got Jameson Tyone versus Andrew Abbott. That's great. Great. Andrew Abbott with his 2.88 ERA, all-star for the Reds this year. Tyone 3.93 ERA for the Cubs. So, pitching advantage goes to the Reds. And then we'll see, this week. They're going to have the Pirates come to town. I'm hoping they see Paul Skeens, but that's not a good team. So, who knows what happens here? We'll have to look it up for a future episode because the Pirates have not listed any of their starters. But I do know that Brady Singer's going on Tuesday, which means the Hunter Green would be going on Wednesday. So they're going to be lined up. They're going to be lined up with their best 2 arms lately going to open up that series against a bad baseball team. So we'll see. But now the Mets are officially out of the driver's seat. Or if they are in the driver's seat, the Reds are riding shotgun pretty close by. Now, the Diamondbacks won too. So let's not forget about the Diamondbacks because they are still very much in this race 2 games back. The Giants are out of it. I was completely wrong saying that you should have been rooting for the Diamondbacks against the Giants earlier this week because the Giants have just gone through a free fall. So they're 2-8 in their last 10. They're out of it. I mean, they're 4 games back, but the Mets had the tiebreaker, so they're just in a bad spot. The Diamondbacks, though, could easily get back into this thing. They're going to play the Dodgers after this, and we'll see how today goes against the Phillies, who's going to win that series. But the bottom line for the Mets, you got to win baseball games. They can't back their way into this thing. And now the best they can do with their whatever it is, I don't even care about talking about the payroll, but the talent that's on this roster. With Juan Soto in his prime, putting together a ridiculously good season. Francisco Lindor ultimately has had a good year. Pete Alonso's had a great year. You've gotten certain things that you can check off and say, oh, this actually went well for the Mets. This worked out. Jeff McNeil, way better season than you could have expected. And yet here they are, 80-75. The best they can do is an 87-win season. And who actually thinks the Mets are going to run the table here down the stretch? The Cubs, who the Reds are handling with ease, are going to come home to Wrigley and beat up on the Mets with the way things are going. And then you could be out of this thing. So it's just so frustrating when you have a chance where all you got to do is get a runner home from third with 1 out. And you had one of your supposed best hitters up in Brandon Nimmo, and you can't get the job done. I don't know where the Mets go from here. I do know they got to win this game on Sunday to keep pace. And you never know. Very hard to sweep a 4-game set. Maybe the Reds lose today. Maybe the Diamondbacks lose today. In which case, you still enter the final week of the season with the magic number 5. And if the Mets win 2 against the Cubs and the Reds somehow lose 2 against the Pirates, would you say, how would those things happen? Who would have thought the Reds were going to take the first 3 games of their series against a Cubs team that going into the series was probably up, 76-80. They were up 12 games in the win column over the Reds. But the Reds got the job done. And they're going to be greedy, going for a little bit more on Sunday, and If they get it and the Mets lose, guess what? Final week of the season, the New York Mets will not be sitting in a playoff spot. They will be trailing trailing the Reds, and their destiny will officially be out of their hands. So win on Sunday, avoid that fate, regroup, go have a good road trip, and you still can make the playoffs. But at this point, it's anyone's guess how this season's going to end. Well, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Really appreciate all of you for tuning in. I will have another show for you tomorrow morning. We're going to stick with 2-segment shows while I'm still on my little vacation here, and then I'll be back full shows rest of the way, throughout the rest of this regular season at least, and hopefully into a playoff run. But again, as always, really do appreciate all of you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on the audio side, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around all the action in Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through all the games. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.